terrorists wounded and captured General China, the number 2 leader of the anti-white society, in a battle near Nayeri. Paris, France. Charles de Gaulle, now retired from the world of politics, is writing his memoirs. Following the resounding defeat of his party in last year's elections, the one-time French leader has settled down at his country estate at Colombey-les-Deux-Églises. Another notable world leader has different ideas about retirement. Sir Winston Churchill arrived at the White House today looking hale and hearty, showing no signs of the illness that incapacitated him for a while last year. The Prime Minister appears ready to continue indefinitely as head of the British government. Moscow. With the recent execution of Lavrenti Beria, former first deputy premier for the Soviet Union, inside observers feel that Premier Malenkov's succession to Stalin's power now seems complete. Malenkov has now relinquished the duties of first secretary of the Communist Party to an obscure party functionary, N.S. Khrushchev. In other foreign affairs, more on the colonial question. Belgium's Minister for Colonies, André de Guy, asserted today that his country is determined to maintain its rights and responsibilities in the Congo. He echoes the sentiments of many at the UN, who take the position that some colonies and protectorates will not be ready for self-government in this century. Washington. The Supreme Court has finished hearing the re-argument of cases involving the constitutionality of racially segregated schools. The court's long-postponed decision may represent some modification of the separate but equal facilities ruling handed down 50 years ago. Also on Capitol Hill, President Eisenhower has called for a drive to reduce government spending and cut taxes. In Congress, action is expected shortly on the Cole-Hickenlooper bill, which would authorize the use of atomic energy for electric power plants. Leaders in the utility industry say that obtaining peaceful power from the atom is technically feasible. The big question appears to be how many decades it will take to make atomic electric plants economically feasible. Dateline, Washington. The United States and Japan have announced an agreement making Japan eligible for the Mutual Security Program. Under the terms of the agreement, the U.S. will furnish Japan both military equipment and economic aid. Also, by way of economic aid, the Foreign Operations Administration has approved a grant of a $100 million loan to the European coal and steel community, which is just concluding 1 year of relatively successful operation. Observers feel, however, that Europe and Japan are showing promising signs of economic recovery. Headlining the news in aviation. Marking a new advance in air travel, Trans World Airlines today inaugurated coast-to-coast non-stop flights on a regularly scheduled basis. Flying time, 8 hours. The 2 other transcontinental carriers expect to follow suit shortly. On the scientific front, a well-known rocket engineer, Dr. Richard Porter of the General Electric Company, says we could send a man to the moon if we wanted to. He also spoke of having a satellite circle the Earth every 24 hours to report on weather conditions. Government officials have gracefully refused comment, but privately indicate a deep skepticism. Business in the news. International Business Machine has introduced the 702, an electronic calculator said to be the fastest and most flexible commercial data processing system ever devised. Analysts will, of course, be watching the effects of this, if any, on Remington Rand and Univac. Texas Instruments, an obscure company just recently on the big board, was extremely active this week, climbing to a high of 7 3/4. Turning out about 500 germanium transistors a day, TI expects to hit 1,000 by this spring. Sears Roebuck's new top man, Theodore Hauser, says the new catalog will feature price cuts in hard goods and home appliances. Washers are down 15%. The country's leading mail-order house has also announced it is going to drop name brands in electrical housewares competitive with its own labels. On the lighter side of the news, we understand these foreign cars are easy on the gasoline. Well, these funny little cars aren't quite that thrifty, although a few thousand American car buyers seemed to think so. And Detroit, with 6.25 million cars last year, for the second biggest production year ever, is not exactly running scared.
In this brief decade, the winds of change have swept through the world, generating new forces, new pressures, and among some men, a new awareness of challenge and opportunity, or perhaps illusion and ruin. Today, the sum of mankind is almost 3 billion. Perhaps more than the world can feed, clothe, house, or educate. Or perhaps a new and greater marketplace for our goods and services. When political change has lagged behind the conscience of men, they have generated their own forces of change. Sometimes the winds of change tear apart. Sometimes the winds bring fresh beginnings. Discord. Concord. Membership today, 113, mostly paying, almost double in the decade. Footnote, 38 of these were under colonial rule 10 years ago. New physical forces have created powerful new emotional forces. Each providing its own action and reaction. Powerful new political forces have also moved across the scene, each shaping or reshaping the climate of the world and of this nation. A couple of pensioners, a revolutionary, a couple of generals, a tired man, an untried man, close finisher, Arizona hopeful, courage, then silence. Silent courage. Continuum. In this same decade, pacing the increased tempo of change, research and development to the tune of more than $18 billion in 1964. The industry of invention is today one of the biggest industries in the nation. The result? New products in, old products out. What did they want? Transistors instead of tubes. Styrofoam instead of corrugated cardboard. A computer millions of times faster than a common garden variety calculator. Jet planes that obsolete the piston planes. And orbital flights that make jet speeds seem slow.
Liftoff. Liftoff at 34 minutes after the hour.
Applied technology, close on the heels of research, has made its own mark over these fast-moving years. What do they want? An electric knife. Is it just a gimmick or a clue to a whole new market? Did they say someday we'd have nuclear-powered generating plants competitive with coal-fired plants? Today is someday. Technological note for industry. The question is not whether to automate, but rather how to automate. Or for medicine, a heart stimulator to prolong someone's life, opening the door to many new applications of electronics to medical science. The driving force of change has also brought a new and affluent American economy. Despite pockets of unemployment, the average American family now enjoys an income of more than $7,700, the envy of other families the world over. Where does that income go today? On 2 cars instead of 1. On a new complex of highways and parking lots to contain those cars. Those dollars also go for style, or status, for recreation, or for repairs, for travel, and telephones, for education, and for electricity, or gas, for music, and for medical care, for frozen foods, and fancy packaging, for instant potatoes, and instant protection. Have American businessmen listened to the winds of change over this decade? This growing affluence? Some of them have. Sears Roebuck now advertises minks and diamonds, with their retail stores selling original art up to $8,000 a painting. With instant color, Polaroid has developed a picture and a market on top of a market. And what has become America's favorite winter sport? Brunswick and AMF can tell you. During this same decade, industry and government have also built a great St. Lawrence Seaway, one of many construction feats. They made Chicago a major seaport for world trade, and the trade has flowed both ways, in as well as out, and not only to Chicago, but all across the nation. Aggressive foreign competitors, smart competitors, have knifed into our markets in this country and abroad. Case history, Japan. Our imports from this booming country up 6 times in the past 10 years. Who's her number one customer? The United States. But the Seaway leads more directly to Europe, an additional threat to the complacent in American business. A prosperous common market has grown from the experimental coal and steel community. The Volkswagens are still funny little cars, but not in Detroit. Economic growth rate of the common market countries double that of the United States. One result, 3 million workers imported to fill a labor shortage. Dare we look ahead? Dare we not look ahead to tomorrow's winds of change? By 1970, this nation's population will reach 210 million, most of it concentrated in metropolitan areas. Think big. Only 30 years later, the world will try to accommodate 6 billion people. There should be some new flags at the UN, along with new problems, new crises. Hopefully, we will be a little closer to the freedom and unity of all peoples. Many political leaders will have given way. And somewhere in the crowd, strange new faces may write their pages of history. By 1970, the United States can have a $750 billion economy, with alert business leaders seizing the opportunities this offers. By then, each family can have another $1,100 of income to spend. Some of it will have to go to support another 2.5 million college students, or for more and better medical care, or for maintaining what we already have. Very often, however, there will be the same choice anyone has today: your product or the one made by that competitor or by that overseas neighbor, or a choice between your electric kitchen and wall-to-wall carpeting, or even a vacation in the Bahamas. For those countries and companies and men who fail to sense the winds of change, the road ahead can be cruel. For those who accept the challenge, the rewards can be great. Keeping America competitive, serving our customers and ourselves. It is one thing to report what has happened, and quite another to anticipate what will happen, and still another to make something happen.